In this video, we're going to be working again on the Dodge Ram 1500 SST. So this rare pickup truck we found and we have been bringing it back to life. So got this all looking good. So in the last episode, we painted the engine bay, got it all looking really good. And we will be at some point painting the exterior. And if you guys are wondering on the color combo, we're going to end up doing the exact same color, you guys, if we do end up painting it. Or just let you know now, this truck will be for sale. So if you guys are interested in this truck, we will be selling it at the end of all this because we have a ton of vehicles here and can't keep them all, but this is gonna be a fun one. So what my goal is in today's video is I just finished cleaning this a little bit. You guys didn't miss anything. I put the intake manifold back on it so that I could pressure wash it properly because there was a bunch of dirt and grime up here. This engine, if you guys remember, we removed it from our 14 Ram 1500 and it just never got cleaned. So I put the intake manifold on so I can clean in here properly and pressure wash and degrease it all. So we got that done. Transmission does have to come off again. We've got some parts from Holley because we have a flex plate for the 727 that we're going to be trying out. We might end up going bigger and crazier, but for now we're going to get that sorted out. So flex plate has to go on, torque converter has to go back in there, so we'll do that. And then my goal for this episode, we'll see how far we get, is once we do the transmission stuff, drop it back in here. You'll see over there we've got that box from Hooker Blackheart. We're gonna see about possibly fitting some headers on this. These headers aren't spec'd out for this, but we're gonna try them and see. They are for a Gen 3 HEMI, but I'll let you guys know if they will work or if we'll have to manipulate them at all or how that'll all play out. So we've got those there. Also, you can see we continue to have to put air in the tires. These tires on these SST wheels are shot. We have the new or better leaf springs over there that we've painted, and we still have the old ones on here that are sacked out. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we're chipping away at it. What I'm thinking is gonna happen, we put the engine in, check out the exhaust a little bit, then we'll take the cab, drop it on top after we see what we're gonna do for an exhaust. Right now it's just got the stock manifolds on it, but we're gonna try and see if we can fit those on there, and we'll just take it step by step. So let's get started. Okay, so we got the engine and transmission back in here. Let's go ahead and pop the, what is it, 5 bolts? 6 bolts that are holding the transmission to this HEMI. We'll pop it off and I'll show you guys what we're getting into. All right, so you can see we don't have a flex plate on here, and also the converter isn't in as well. So I have them both off. Let me show you guys what is gonna go on with this. So on the Gen 3 HEMI, the flex plate also has the ring for the starter gear. But on this 727, the flex plate is simply just the flex plate, and then the converter has the ring for the starter. So that is a slightly different setup. Luckily, the boys over at Holley have us all figured out, sorted out. So let me show you guys the solution for it. Right here, we have a SFI certified flex plate for the Gen 3 HEMI. So this is Gen 3 HEMI to the Torque Flight 727/904. So this is specifically for it. So we have it. We're gonna bolt this onto the engine, then we can put our converter in, and then our converter will mate up to this flex plate. So here you can see our torque converter has the ring gear for the starter on it. So that was the way the 727 had it. But one thing is you can see this here on our converter and the size here. We have to take out this collar. So we gotta get that collar out of there. Some of the converters on the newer HEMIs, some of them will have this collar, some of them won't. Obviously, we need the larger diameter, so this collar's gotta get out, and I've heard it's not fun to come out, so let's go. All right, so I saw this trick where somebody took a nut, they welded it with a bolt to that inner sleeve and then zipped it out. So that's what I did with my MIG. Let's see if that trick works. Otherwise, that is gonna be a headache to get out. That was way too easy. All right, that was awesome, you guys. So that is out. Now we can move on. All right, so now let's go ahead, put our flex plate on there with our bolts and tighten it down. Also, you will notice that I have this here. So on the 727, it doesn't come with an actual, some of them have like a plate that goes between the transmission and the engine. This one only covers the lower half, and we're probably gonna have to modify it because this is actually, I think this is for a Magnum, but it needs to be trimmed for the Gen 3 Hemi. So we'll figure that out afterwards. But this is going to be the one for, I believe, we'll see what we end up running for a starter based on all the other configuration stuff. But if we run the starter that was on it, which is actually over there, then that's our ticket. Okay, time to watch me struggle put the transmission on to this engine. So I'm gonna go ahead, install the converter in the trans, get this over here, we'll bolt it up. Hopefully we can get at least a couple of those in. Not like it's turning anytime soon and we can get to them from the bottom on this application, but let's go ahead and get that on there. All right, so transmission's on, and we can put in our converter bolts, but there's not really a point just yet, but everything's lining up. Converter is, looks like the spacing is bang on, so good job, boys, for coming up with that easy piece for us. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pop off these stock manifolds. That way it's just a little bit easier to you know, do whatever we gotta do once we get the engine into the chassis. And that way I can test fit those other headers as well. So I'm gonna zip them off here while they're easily accessible and just pop both sides off, nothing too crazy. All right, boys, well, engine is in. I don't know when my camera decided to, for the battery to go out on it, but I was filming that for at least the beginning part, but dropped her in the chassis. Everything fits, as you guys remember from previous videos. If you guys haven't seen us put this into place, go check those out. It looks like we have quite a bit of room, but we'll find out here in a second. Let's crack open that box and let's see if we get lucky with these headers. You guys, I am so excited right now. The Hooker Blackheart headers fit on the Ram. I cannot believe this. So these are spec'd out for the Dakota. It's the same ones on that, and they fit, you guys. So probably have to kind of massage a couple things, but even on the Dakota, they are close in the exact same spots, but they all clear. I gotta bolt them up, but they slide in there beautifully. Also might have to massage this bracket a tiny little bit, but I mean, they're in here, they're up, the flanges are flat, and she's gonna flow through here, you guys. So I am super happy right now. So everything fits, we got good clearance. Only thing I'm realizing is just how ugly this transmission is. So I'm almost wondering before I really get things set in, even though my game plan originally was to just see if this transmission's any good before I bother cleaning it up. I think I might, I don't know. I'm thinking I might take it back out and just paint it at least black or something, just so it doesn't look so horrendous. Because everything looks so good, and then we just got this ugly red speckled transmission. But comment down below what you guys think. But it's dark. I'm wrapping it up for the day, but not the video. But let me know down below before I continue the next day on the same video. Let me know if you would paint it or if you would leave it. I want to know. All right, guys. Well, it's the next day, and I rolled everything out front, and I made sure everything's taped off, all of our ports and everything. And what I'm doing now is, instead of painting this again, I am going to take it down like that. So I've got a wire wheel on my angle grinder, and I'm going to go ahead and I just made quick work of this. This took me like not even 20 seconds. And it comes out real good. So I'm just going to continue to strip the paint off that way rather than trying to take everything out and all that. I just brought it outside so that we're not making a ton of dust in the shop. And we're just going to strip all this down, and I'll show you guys the result in a second. All right, guys, so that came out way better than what it looked like before. A few spots where I can't get into where I could use a little bit of aircraft stripper or whatever I want to use, but majority of it is looking good. I guess I suppose I could take these bolts out one at a time and do it that way, which is an option. Not these ones though, because this is a sealed side, but you guys get the idea. Anyways, looks a lot better. The bottom side, we can get it from the bottom, obviously, once it's up in the air. And let's move on to the next thing. I think what I want to do now is, even though we're going to be replacing all the bushings and stuff, kind of just want to consolidate a little bit of stuff. These springs are coming out regardless, and I've got the new ones over there on the floor. That way I can get rid of these springs and I don't have them anymore. Just something that I want to just knock out of the way. It's going to be a few bolts and we can put the new springs on. At least that way this thing will be sitting a little bit more proper instead of being sacked out of the rear as well. All right, so it really doesn't take much when there's nothing in the way, you guys, but these bushings are shot. Like, look at that. So these polyurethane bushings are definitely cooked. So like I said, we're gonna be replacing all that, so don't get mad at me for not doing it right now. I just got extra stuff laying around in the shop, and since this needs to go, we might as well. So check this out. So these are obviously the ones we just took out. Look how flat they are, whereas this one has a nice sweep, and these are just completely sacked out. And if I show you a different way, if I flip it up like this, and then I flip this one, you're gonna see this one sit much, much higher. Like, look at that. How's that for an outcome? It almost looks like somebody flipped the bottom spring. Like, the last leaf looks almost like it was flipped, like the support leaf. I don't know. If you guys have any other insight onto this, let me know. But that looks like the bottom leaf is flipped for some reason, because you can see that one kind of follows the shape and that one is just bang the other way. So anyways, let's put in the leaves that aren't all sacked up. And they do appear to be OEM leaves, because you can tell just by the way the rivets and everything look identical. It's just these are just so sacked out. Other thing you can tell is there's the OEM right there, the Mopar Chrysler logo, and you can't see it on this one because I'm sure it's probably hidden underneath here, because somebody probably flipped this bottom overload leaf. So anyways, let me go ahead and throw the new one in. All right, guys, this side is on, and look at that. Now she's actually supporting herself. Mind you, we don't have the bed on, which is gonna add a heck of a lot of weight to the back end of this vehicle, but at least now it's got some clearance. I chose to go up on the position so that it would technically or effectively lower it a little bit more, since these are aftermarket shackles. And then on this one, same thing. So we're gonna replace this side. Again, these leaves are completely just sacked out. So I'm gonna go ahead, we'll raise it, and then we'll take out this leaf, swap it out, and then that'll be done. Okay, so here's how she's sitting with the new leaves on here, and that's with these lowering shackles and even in the higher position here. So we've got a ton of clearance here. Of course, there's no weight on the back end, but I'm kind of wondering how it's gonna sit. I am getting even more curious about the fact that the overload spring on the bottom has been flipped. So, and I've tried doing some research, but I'm not finding a ton of info whether the SST had specific leaf springs or whether they were all the same from like the 94 to 02. At least I know there was like the off-road package, and the 4x4 was a heavier leaf spring, but on the two-wheel drive trucks, which we got these new springs from, whether there was any differences and whether the SST was a softer spring. So I just for fun decided to take off the overload spring, and you can see, so this, I literally just flipped that down like that. So you can see the pattern here. So it was at one point bolted to the actual axle. So you can see the axle kind of imprint there. So somebody has flipped this overload spring. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this back here and then reassemble it, and just for fun, see what it looks like. You can kind of see these springs have been sacked out though. You can see how they're not like a nice arch. So these might have gotten beat up just from not having the overload springs supporting them properly. They might have gotten sacked out. Who knows whether this thing was sitting around for a while with, you know, a bunch of weight in the bed and it just, you know, ruined these springs, leaf springs. I'm not too sure, but anyways, let's try that and just see what it looks like. All right, so we've got this one here, which we corrected the overload spring. And then we've got that one there, which you can see is incorrect. So I'm gonna give you guys the official super calculated test and we can assess from there. So make sure you have approved OSHA safety shoes on for this, but the one with the overload spring in the right way, I think, versus this one. I guess maybe I should move this little plate or remove it. And this one looks like it has a lot more give to it because that overload spring doesn't come in contact with the actual ride spring, whereas this one, when the overload springs start to come into contact, it stiffens up. So if I had to guess, I wouldn't be surprised if we flipped the overload spring, reinstalled these, if they would actually perform the way they're supposed to. But comment down below if you guys know more about this. Who am I to say? I'm over here in OSHA shoes. All right, so it is a few days later, you guys. I decided to take a few days off from working on the SST, and we took the Hellcat Swap Ram 1500 and we went to the drag strip, not once, but twice. If you guys haven't seen those videos, go check them out. It was a ton of fun and it kind of rejuvenated me because I was getting a little bit worn out working on just project after project. So right now, if you guys haven't already seen, we got that thing painted and I test fitted the headers, but if you guys saw, I kind of was gonna have to modify the headers a little tiny bit or just make a little bit of clearance, but I wanted to see if potentially I could move the engine a little bit. There was a few reasons. I think when we originally designed the engine mounts, the back of our valve covers were really close to the firewall. It still fit, but when I lifted the engine up, I tried a different engine mount just for a second, and when I lift the engine up, I can actually get the headers in on both sides. Really nice. I also brought the engine forward just a hair, and the other reason is, so before we had our transmission mount was in these slots all the way to the back, and I slid the engine forward, I raised the engine a little bit, and it's allowing for me to install my headers. And I'm gonna test fit, I might be able to fit our AC compressor in here with the engine forward and a little bit higher. I'm gonna see if that might be a factor, and also if I do that, we can also get to our oil filter, so I might not have to relocate our oil filter as well. So kind of a bunch of little factors coming into play here. I didn't do anything here, so I might just completely reconfigure those engine mounts and redesign them now that we're kind of getting into this a little bit more. But I put that up there. I'm gonna roll this in. Obviously I have the engine supported by wood on this side, and on this side I have one of these OEM engine mounts just kind of in place just to see if I like this positioning. Let's roll this chassis in, drop the body down on it, and let's see how this lands. You guys, this is the first time that I've dropped the cab back on with the painted bay and the painted frame. This thing looks so good, you guys. It's coming out like brand new. I'm so happy with just how the painted frame looks with the engine bay. Hopefully that's coming out on camera as good as it looks in person. Like, check out how clean that all looks now. So I'm happy to say that with moving the engine forward towards us, it's gonna be a lot better. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And like I said, for a few reasons. One being that it's gonna give us more room for our exhaust. Two, I actually just tried the AC compressor. I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but the AC compressor actually will fit with moving the engine forward. So I can get the AC compressor back in here before it wouldn't. So that'll fit, so we can potentially have AC if we want all the functions and features. Only last thing I'm gonna double check is just our intake manifold to make sure it clears through here. I think we should have plenty of room, but of course, I want to make sure in case we get carried away, if we ever want to put a Hellcat engine in here, we want to put a Hellcat blower on here, that we have the height. So I think we should be good, but I'll double check that. So I'll throw our intake manifold on here. I think right now I'm maybe a tiny bit this way, so it's going to have to come up a little bit. Again, it's just wood supporting on that side, but I think overall this is going to be the ticket, is moving it forward a little bit. You can see we've got a lot of room back here now. Other thing too is if we do ever decide to put like an 8-speed transmission in there, you can hopefully see we got a ton of room in there. So with bringing it forward, we're gonna have more room in the transmission tunnel. So just a few bonuses with bringing this thing forward. All right guys, so I actually rolled the truck outside because these engine mounts aren't showing up for another few days, and I want to get this video up for you guys because I know a lot of people are interested in where we're at with the progress on this. So we are still working on it, but as with all things, you guys, you kind of have to wait for certain parts to arrive. So a couple things. If anybody is interested in doing this swap, I now have a few different engine mount configurations. I will be selling, I have 2 OEM mounts right here. I will be selling those. If anybody's interested in them, I'll sell them for $120 shipped in the US. So if you're interested in those mounts, I have another matching one that goes on this side. It will get your engine in here, and the year that I use, it will get your engine installed. You will have to notch out the engine mount, but if anybody's interested in those 2 mounts, I will sell them for $120 shipped. I just want to move it around a little bit for my configuration, but they will work. So, because I've been trying all sorts of different mounts for you guys, and then I'll be ultimately telling you guys what final configuration I come up with. But if you guys are putting a HEMI in a 2nd gen, hit me up. I've got some mounts that I can give you guys, like I said, for that price, and I'm going to continue to dial this in for you. So super happy with the progress, super happy with how it's coming out. And then even now with the other leafs in there, it seems like the chassis is sitting a lot nicer. I do think that these front springs are aftermarket. I'm pretty sure that they're already a lowering spring. So with the lowering spring in the front and then the lowering shackle in the back, I think this is going to have a pretty decent stance, but we can always reassess once we kind of get different wheels on here. These wheels are fairly small, so if we were to put a bigger wheel on there, I think it would pretty much fill up that gap, but we can always dial that stuff in afterwards. But super happy with the progress. A lot is underway, and pretty soon here we're going to be cranking into this thing. So once we get the engine into the final position, then we can start reassembling stuff, actually getting it in here. We got all the Holley EFI stuff. We're going to start getting it all wired, all plumbed, and then we'll be well on our way. So things are going to start moving pretty quickly here at a fast pace. I'm excited for it. Comment down below what you guys think of this whole project. Like I said, I want to get this out for you guys. Probably a few more days from today of the making of this video, I'll have the engine mounts, and then I can continue and get all that stuff done. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you smash that thumbs up before you take off. Drop a comment down below what you like best on this project, and we'll see you guys on the next video.